Welcome to the Deep Funding Town Hall. It's the 2nd of November, and we have a great town hall for you today. I would love to start by sharing my screen for anyone who's coming here for the first time or would like a reminder. Yes, Deep Funding Town Hall. Deep Funding Town Hall is an initiative by the SingularityNET Ambassador program in collaboration with the SingularityNET Foundation. It aims to establish an open online space for the Deep Funding and SingularityNET community. That's you guys. That includes people that want to get involved in Deep Funding, people that already are, proposers, awarded proposers. So we would love you to stay in touch with SingularityNET. Here's the link, Deep Funding, and to start getting involved with our AI marketplace, which is in beta. So today we have the main room, the topic, governance. So now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and would love to throw it over to Jan to give us any updates which he would like to give, and Raphael.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to use this town hall completely and utterly for the topics that I would like to discuss. The reason for being here, so normally, or last half year or something, we tried not to mix governance topics with town halls because I don't want to compete with deep funding governance topics with teams that would like to present something or to discuss something, etc. So we used to do that and still doing that on separate occasions. However, last week we had a listening session with the focus group. And I did a short intro where I was touching lightly on a couple of topics and actually racing through it. And then my dear Felix here asked me if I would have a more longer and more in-depth session with you today. So I'm very happy that you, allow me the space, and I hope you didn't have to disappoint too many awarded teams out there that wanted to do something, or community members that wanted to have breakout room for something. But at least here we are. So I created a number of slides, an untypically large collection of slides for the way I tend to do these things lately. But it helps me think, because all the things that we will be discussing are not things that are decided upon. They are not written in stone. They are not unchangeable. Actually, I've filled quite a number of slides with open questions that I still have. So I'm exploring a number of things, but I will tell you that while I will be presenting the slides, otherwise I'll be just repeating myself. So unless anybody else has anything he would like to start out with, then I will just jump to the slides. So here we are. Oh, yeah. Round 3 in governance. Let me explain. One moment. Oh. So first of all, to give some context to where we are and what we're doing, here's a diagram, a table with the results of we only had 3 rounds. It looks like I'm working on deep funding for ages, but we only had 3 rounds. So we're really early stages here, I would say. So round one started out with 1 million. In round two, we were halving that due to also bad market conditions at the time. After that, there was a huge surge in AI, so that also allowed us to be a little bit more giving this way. So 1.53 million USD. Also in this round, almost the complete awarded amount has been or will be has been promised at least to the team, so that's also good. Number of pools is a little bit the same. Number of submissions is growing significantly, I would say. What is even better is the number of eligibility projects, and I think we can also thank our eligibility team for that, because they really helped people to improve their projects and guided and coached them, and I will come back to that later. Number of awarded projects, yeah, so we are going from 12 to 17 to 43. So that has some consequences. Votes also increasing, but maybe not that impressive. But from this last round, round three, there are two topics that are emerging and that need our attention. The first one is operations. So with the number of projects suddenly exploding and the Deep Funding operations team, well, it says 1.5, but actually it's only Raphael. So we're a really small team. I remember asking one or two teams in the previous round because they were not quite satisfied on the level of communication that we had with them. So I asked them, how many people do you think we are in this organization? I don't remember the exact answer, but I think they said something like, after some pressing, well, maybe 20. Well, no, we're just 1.5 person basically, because I have some other things to do as well. There's also a team that is working on our new platform, so that is separate. But Raphael, and supported a little bit by me, will have to take care of all these new projects, of all milestone of contracts being signed, and of milestones being delivered and assessed, team meetings being held, all kinds of communications of all kinds of topics. And then there are things like marketing, etc. And I'm not even talking about organizing the next new round. So there's a huge amount of work. So we need to give that some attention. How will we cover that? The other thing, so this is what we are going, or at least what I will be sharing something about with you. So I have a number of slides. If you feel it's important, you can interrupt me. Normally, I don't mind to be interrupted at all. In this case, maybe it also makes sense to let me go through the whole slide, because then you'll have a complete picture. But if you feel it's relevant, just interrupt. So there's another topic, which is about reputation and contribution ratings and voting and all that stuff. In this round, we experienced some what I would call undesired behavior. And there was some discussion on contribution rewards. And actually, we started a very nice and promising process with the focus group, another group. We have the review team, we have a focus group that are up and running and doing really good work. So what we started out, what we experimented with basically, is a kind of consent process, where the focus group, together with me, based on the input we gave, we organized a workshop to get community input on these issues that we saw. And should we change something in the reward mechanism because of this? With the input collected in that workshop or listening session, as we call it, the focus group and me together created an advice. We said, well, this is how we think we should do it. Then we went into a consent mechanism where we said, well, we'll give the community an opportunity to offer or withdraw their consent. And there was one person that did not consent in the community members that were engaged in this. So we addressed that, and in the end, we decided that there were reasons to continue as planned. But we did give it proper attention. There's one little step missing in that process, which was, I think, conducted very well and is very promising for the future, especially in such a short time frame with a new focus group, etc. So great work done by all those people. But I'll come back to this as well, because it also, even though the subject of reputation and contribution ratings is something that we plan to discuss next week in the new listening session by the focus group, it does have some relevance to what I'm talking about right now. Just practical note, I won't be able to be there next Thursday due to traveling, but the focus group will take care of that. I didn't plan to talk that much about this slide, so I hope that doesn't bode well for the rest of my presentation. Sorry for that. So this is a reminder, a slide that I've shown before. It's a kind of framework that I created for what we're doing here. So Deep Funding is a lot about experimentation. We need to learn a lot, and there's so many things that need to be covered. So we try to experiment, and every round there are new things, and in between rounds there are new things. But we want to mature. So at some point we will consolidate, we'll figure out what works well and what works less well, and we stop doing that. So for instance, going from 2 pools to 5 pools, we've done that now another time. Maybe it will change a little bit further, but there is already some consolidation there. If these kind of things are really consolidated, we can think about governance and think about a process if we want to change it. So right now that is being done quite ad hoc, sometimes centrally. That is another topic for this discussion. But at some point we need to have more proper processes around all these changes that we want to implement. But we're not there yet. This slide, because I saw it in the presentation going forward to this session. I'll just go over it for those here or watching the video for whom this is new. So we thought about some guiding principles, and also this is not yet set in stone. Even this can still change, but some of these things I think are important. So the main thing here is that with a growing company, with a growing number of proposals, and with a growing community of teams, awarded teams, we can basically do 2 things. And we are now in a kind of fork in our existence of Deep Funding. One thing that we could do is hire a bunch of people for specific jobs to help me and Raphael do all that stuff. We said no to that because if we do that, we will become a larger centralized organization. And even though it is the easiest thing to do right now, it would be very hard to go away from that road again. Once we've grown our internal organization, we can't just say to these people, well, it was a great 6 months, see you somewhere else. Yeah, so that kind of thing has a kind of staying power. So obviously the alternative that we are aiming at is to grow externally, to grow in our community, and to try and get our community organized in a way that a lot of these operational tasks that in round 1 and 2 and 3 we were doing internally, we can increasingly do and have done by you. And maybe there will be a mix of paid jobs or unpaid jobs, but seeing, if thinking about this, if the alternative from hiring people is offering those tasks to the community, I think it would make sense to also offer some kind of payment for that. It won't be a Silicon Valley consultancy rate or anything. We'll be quite modest in that. But we do think if you are paying a lot of serious effort and doing a lot of things, then it will make sense to reward at least some of these things. Another thing that I started out with when thinking about deep funding is that we should try and keep this organization dynamic. I always say it would be, as much as I love you all, it would not be the best thing if I come back 3 years from now and I would see the exact same faces doing the exact same things. I'm hoping for kind of dynamic where we will get new people in the community and new people doing stuff and new ideas and new faces, and there's some dynamics and some ongoing rotation there that will keep our organization alive and fresh and growing. I'll just go to the next point. Yeah, so when we are having more and more tasks allocated to community members, and when there are more community members involved in tasks, then I can imagine at some point, yeah, reputation system is maybe not the best word here, but some kind of system where that will help us decide which job is best given to which person. That means that at some point we should not only look at who has fulfilled a certain job, but we should also think about if we can give that some kind of rating. So was this job average or poor or really well done? How we should do that, I don't know. Nobody likes to rate other people, and especially not if you know them and they're your friends. But this is something to think about, but also not an immediate thing. The last thing here is that this also ties to not always having the same faces. The organization should be resilient. So if we are putting tasks out to the community, some of these tasks may be time bound. They have to be done before a certain date, or some of them may be very important or urgent or whatever. It would be very awkward if we have to wait for days or weeks or whatever because there's one person on a holiday or life happens, you know. So that's also something we have to take into account when designing this new structure that we are building. If you want me to speed up and talk a little bit less and go quicker to the slides, this is your moment to say so.
I guess it's fine.
Okay, okay.
Better than fine, actually.
All right, then I'll just try to continue at the same speed. So one thing is there's this method of holacracy, which uses circles as an organizational component. And the idea of these circles is that it's more flat and people are bound to each other or in a circle because they have something in common, rather than creating a whole hierarchical structure as most companies are structured. So if we, and it's not about doing holacracy or anything, but this is one of the concepts that I took the liberty of borrowing. And maybe we'll add our own flavor to this. So I can imagine that circle, a circle could consist of 5 people, but maybe at some point it would be 50 people, where some people are more active than others, or do very specific, specialized things, while others are more generic and doing more stuff. But I would hope that for each of these circles, we would have 2 people that Raphael and me can always contact if we need to have something done or etc. 1 is probably not enough because people need to sleep and they get ill and they go on holiday. 2 would be a good starting point. And it would even better if it wouldn't always be the same people, but if this role would rotate, maybe not among all 50 people or 5 people, but maybe those people that are interested in having that role for a certain amount of time. Also, if we want to make this work, we need to put some responsibility to these circles. So if we are asking them to cover a certain job, Raphael and me can do some checking and can do a last check or whatever, especially in the beginning. But at some point, we will have to rely on these circles doing their work responsible and delivering stuff without us checking every step. And because if we have to check every step, then probably it will take us more time than doing it ourselves. And very likely that will happen in the beginning, that it will take us more, that some things will take us more time than just doing it by ourselves. And that's not a problem. But we should learn and go towards a trajectory where these circles will be self-contained and really feel also responsible and feel ownership for what they are accomplishing. And that way we give part of the ownership of deep funding to the community in the best way possible. And we can have discussion sessions like until the end of time, but this is actually giving responsibility to the community. Also, all agreements that we make, if we have agreements about payments, about responsibilities, about types of works that we do or do not work per role or per circle, we should aim to make that as transparent as possible. And the reason for that is that we can start with a kind of smaller group, but at some point we have to put those groups open to the wider community. It shouldn't be closed circles, it should be open circles, and everybody who thinks they can contribute or can do something better, or they have time to spare or they want to be part of it, should in principle be able to join such a circle. Of course, there's a lot of detail and nitty-gritty things there, but we'll sort that out as we go along. Any questions so far? Okay, Kenrick. Hey, Kenrick.
I just had a short comment on your last one. Openness and transparency are a very important part of the ethics of all of these communities. So I totally get where that's coming from. But it's been interesting to learn that, like in these circles, it's important to have the circles have their own autonomy. And part of how they establish autonomy is they get to decide who becomes new members of the circle.
Yeah.
And so there can be like an openness to applying to be part of a circle, but the members of the circle deserve some autonomy to make the decision whether to accept that application. And that way they're...
Continue.
Well, and that way, like this, because the circle members know what they're trying to accomplish and what the roles and responsibilities are and where maybe they have gaps and need someone to fill a gap. But to just say, did someone just raise their hand, hey, I'd like to be part of that circle, but then not have a clear role, not have a clear set of responsibilities, what they're going to contribute to the circle, that's where conflict and difficulties can arise.
Well, I agree with everything you say, of course. So one thing I want to point out here. First of all, I don't plan, especially not in time, maybe now at the first stage, but in time, I don't plan to be the one selecting people for these circles. That's one thing. Second thing is, we can have some ground rules for circles. And one ground rule could be that any member should not be more than X amount of time, a year or whatever, in a circle, if there are other people who also want to join. So that we can create a rule that will incentivize some rotation in these circles. So what I would like to avoid is that we have one circle that are really close friends and that say, well, this is an open circle, but nobody's welcome because we didn't determine who is
I
in.
agree with that too. The term limits and making sure there's rotation in and out of the circle is also quite important.
And then finally, there are different kinds of circles. We'll come back to that, but I can give you 2 examples. We have a focus group now. The focus group consists of 5 people, and that's a good number. A focus group of 45 people wouldn't work. That would, can't think of the phrase right now, but go beyond the goal of it. On the other hand, if you have a kind of creative circle, like a marketing circle or something, I can imagine that you have 5 core members, but you have a wider circle of people that can do very specific things. One is very good in 3D, another is very good in making 1-minute videos, a third one is very good in, I don't know, PowerPoint presentations, whatever. So in that sense, I can imagine that you can also have bigger circles. So it also depends on the type of circle and the purpose of the circle, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But all open for discussion still. So thanks for that input. Yeah, this is just also an old slide that I thought was still fitting here. So just to show that we want to have things circulating. It's like air. When there's air in the room and it's too long there, even if it starts out fresh, it will become stale. And I think it's the same with organizations. If a few people are in specific roles for too long a time, there is a risk of it becoming stale. So I'm not sure what is the best way of doing this. On the slide, it looks great. In real life, it will for sure have its challenges. So this is a slide that I showed last time. And I think this was one of the slides that I ended with. So these are a couple of circles that we can think about. We already have a focus group. We already have and are building out our milestone or our review and support team, we call it. Well, that name is not final, by the way. What I would like to start, and that's the reason why I brought this forward last time, is to see if we can create a circle with representatives of the awarded teams, especially in this round with so many teams now here. I think that might warrant a special group of people who represent the needs and rights of this group of stakeholders. Of course, there's the SingularityNET internal team, being me and Raphael. And we thought about having some kind of board of approval. So there are some situations where you would like to have a group of people giving a final decision. And one example is the consent method that I was explaining before, where the focus group created this great consent mechanism or process. And at the end, there was one person saying, well, I do not consent, which is fine, which is totally great. But then we have to make a decision. So we can ask this person what needs to be done to make you consent. But still, at some point, we need to have a final decision on that. So that's one occasion. Another occasion could be a community member that is not satisfied with some kind of assessment that we gave, if he's not eligible for voting, for the voting round, as we saw also in Deep Funding round 3. And yeah, at some point it would also be helpful that it's not just me and Raphael answering and giving our opinions, but that we have some kind of, well, higher, if you want, structure that can put something like that to rest for once and for all. And there can be other things like, well, for instance, in the milestone reviews. But the thing is, we are thinking about having a middle circle like that and that is a little bit aligned with the holacracy as I understand it, that each of these circles could have somebody in that middle circle, and they could then decide on higher level things, and everybody is still connected. By the way, there are options for other circles, but we'll get there later, so I'll leave that for now. And we also added the ambassadors here in this slide, because we thought if we have such a thing, a board of appeal, then maybe we can make that a broader thing. But some very clever community members here told me something that almost kept me awake at night. And one thing was that the observation was, yeah, that this is great, but this is also how Cardano Catalyst started out. And yeah, before you know, you build a cathedral of layers and hierarchies and people in layers, and it's very hard to break that down again. And people will feel entitled. These are my words, by the way. And when I started Deep Funding, I always said, I want to resist that for as long as I can, for as long as it's feasible, having all these layers in the organization and specific peoples on specific positions, because it might look really great when you start doing it, but after a while, it can become a burden, because it gets bigger and unwieldy that way, and that dynamic, that fresh air that we talked about will be removed. So yeah, another comment that he gave me, and that's also very relevant. I won't, for privacy reasons, I won't put a name here now. Is that people can be political creatures, or are political creatures, and I think there's some truth in that. And if we create a kind of structure that facilitates strategic political behavior, people will probably take advantage of it. So if we create a structure that has some inherent hierarchies built in, then there will be people who will try to get more power and more higher up and more say. And on the long run, that is not necessarily a good thing. Kenrick.
Yeah, I'll give you some feedback with my experience with the Catalyst Circle, and maybe it's a little bit different than what you were just describing. Is that
okay?
As I understand some of the history and talking with different people, and having been a participant in the Catalyst Circle myself, there was some initial efforts and some initial work related to sociocracy and holacracy with regard to the Catalyst Circle, but it never came together. And I actually think that weakened the Catalyst Circle dramatically. So for instance, as you're describing here, the way that circles interact with each other and connect with each other is quite important. And because we have to work in teams, and then those teams have to be connected, and then there has to be there's still kind of a overall mission that we all have to be contributing to. So there's a need for kind of a balance between alignment with our mission of beneficial AGI, and then decentralization in the functions, the decision-making that we all go through to kind of arrive at those goals. So it's finding balance in those things. So I think what you've laid out here is a great first effort at that, of forming teams that'll be focused, but then also a way of connecting those teams and making sure that there's a way to coordinate it. If I contrast that with Catalyst Circle, it kind of devolved into just a discussion group that didn't have any authority. And part of, to me, in my impression anyways, is they didn't follow through with the sociocratic and holocratic methods. They formed a circle, but then they didn't have any, there wasn't any training, there wasn't any, there were even some attempts at forming sub-circles, but it wasn't done in the context of what the purpose of those sub-circles was and what their responsibilities were. And so what could have been a good idea, what could have actually been a way of giving some real strength to the community, just ended up devolving into a public discussion group that got blamed for a lot of things and didn't really have the authority to make substantial contributions. So I kind of like what you laid out here. And think
thank you. So this is where it stopped last week. My thinking has progressed a little bit since then, and I will show you what direction that is taking. My thought was that I was thinking about it from a sunny day scenario, and then I saw it all working seamlessly. And then this conversation had me look at the same thing with more like a rainy day scenario, where people would try to abuse the system or would not use it properly, and it would, and I thought, well, maybe there is a better way, or maybe we can tweak this a little bit to put it in a different perspective. Gabriel, you had your hand up as well. Is your topic already covered by Kenrick, or?
No, thanks, Jan. We know the notion in sociocracy that the role is not the soul. Very popular concept in those groups. As you'll know, I think, Jan, I've been very much involved with the HyperDAO platform, and my observation is that a key constraint or mistake, I'm going to call it a mistake, that all Web3 DAO groups have been making is to try and define things in terms of teams and groups, which is the soul of the people, before they define the purpose and the roles. So we tend to start from the soul rather than starting from the role. My view is, first I would think of, instead of calling an organization, I'd think in terms of consortiums. I'm calling it a temporary autonomous consortium. So it's not an organization feels set in stone, right? It feels semi-permanent. If we call it temporary autonomous consortiums, then it's a group of people, yes, getting together, but for a very particular goal or objective or deliverable. And I think the first instance of those deliverables should be to define roles, not from the soul perspective, but in terms of objectives, outputs, deliverables, processes, checklists, things that need to happen, not the people that will end up figuring out what to do. So hopefully I'm trying to convey a point succinctly, but hopefully that makes some sense.
It's a very good point, and I also have one very particular concern there that is exactly related to this. I think we probably have another slide where that comes forward better. Allow me to share with you my current thoughts going further and building on this. So what I'm a little bit afraid of is that we are actually, that this could, even though you could say these people will rotate and etc., or it's still a body where, because I felt myself thinking, I thought, well, if we have this body there, if we have this board of appeal and approval, maybe they can also help me in decision A and in decision B and think with me. So these will actually be some privileged people that are more important than the other ones. And when I had that conversation, I thought, oh my God, this was exactly the thing that I promised myself I wouldn't do. If I can avoid it, and it's still an experiment. So thinking about this, how to go about. So my current idea is more in this direction. So I can imagine that in terms of holacracy, which is quite an old method already, this would make perfect sense also in real organizations on typical locations. But we are now in a digital age. So there's no reason that a lot of these discussions that would be, or decisions that could be made in that smaller group in the middle, couldn't be made by the whole team. And I can imagine we can have a kind of consent mechanism there, so that not everybody needs to be involved in every decision if it's not relevant to them or whatever. But we could have, I can imagine, the way I imagine it right now is that we have these circles, and we have a number of core circles. There may also be circles that come and go, but we'll talk about that also. I can imagine we have some kind of app, and whenever a topic comes up, so no, let's start at the bottom. Also to come back to a comment from Kenrick. These circles, I started saying they should have responsibility, and they should be responsible for what they're doing. And they should be, as Kenrick said, also responsible for letting in other people, I suppose, within some playing rules. So I think every decision that any circle will make that only impacts themselves, they should be completely free in making without any overhead or communication. So basically every decision we should be able to make every decision at the lowest point in the organization. I'm tempted to say hierarchy, but I try to move away from that. So, or the most elementary block in the organization, that's a better term. So that already takes out a lot of decisions. If there are decisions that are on a more, that will impact also other circles, then we can have this environment. We can do it just in whatever social channel, but I think at some point it would be great to have some kind of dedicated app for that. Probably there are apps like that around, where somebody can start a discussion, explain the situation, maybe propose, this is my solution, and then have some kind of consent mechanism going on. As a standard high-level way of processing things. Of course, there will be a lot of things that might not fit here exactly, etc. So instead of having a few people from each circle being in another circle that makes all the decisions, all these decisions should be carried by all people in the circle. So everybody can have a vote and everybody can have their voice heard. Yeah, Kenrick.
I think your first slide has a much better chance of being successful. And here's the heart of why I think this. But I'm open to hearing other suggestions too. We work effectively in teams, and there are limits to what a team can handle and focus on and make effective decisions together and then take actions on. So as just an example, with you've got 5 teams here, right? So this is a good number to start with. I think people get hung up on what to call this circle that's putting all this together. So it's worth putting some time into what that circle is. But I still think there's a need for that circle. You can call it, for instance, a general circle, or as you called it in your last slide, a Board of Appeals. But the way you make sure that it is a decentralized body that really represents the views of each of these circles is through this process that they call two-way communication. I don't know, John, if I don't, maybe others aren't familiar with, but do you know what I mean by the two-way communication within the holacracy methods?
Please explain.
All right, so let me take a minute and explain. So for instance, the general circle would make a decision about which member of that circle is going to be a leader to provide some vision oversight, not make the decisions, but just make sure that a circle is on focus. And I'll just start with the one on the left. So the milestone views would have a representative from the general circle who has a responsibility to keep the circle on target with its mission of milestones reviews. Then at the same time, once this circle is formed, that group would select their own representative back to the general circle. So now the general circle would actually have 10 people involved with it, because each one of these circles would get their own representative. And that person's supposed to represent the circle's point of view to the general circle, so that each circle has a stake and a voice in how the general circle makes decisions for the whole community. And that way you eliminate what. So the problem with hierarchies, as you're just, we've all experienced this, is they tend to be designed top down. And there's like a hand waving that we listen from bottom up, but there's never real representation that way. Whereas in this design, an individual is explicitly representing the bottom up view. And I agree with you, you don't even have to think about it as bottom up, but it's just they're representing one circle's point of view to another circle. And you're doing it both ways. So that's what gives you the decentralized communication, while still allowing there to be a coherent enough group that you're not getting all the noise of everyone, participating in all the decisions.
All right, thank you. I see also Tommy. I also would like to, at some point, continue with the presentation to make sure that we get to the end, and then I'm all open for a discussion. But Tommy, please go ahead.
Yes, that's. I was going to ask you, Jan, if we can continue this idea here. This image is extremely intriguing. I was caught off a little bit, because you have in the rectangle, it says decide by consent, but you also mentioned voting. And I noticed the ambassadors roundtable has spaces in the circle. So I was just hoping you could continue with your explanation of this idea of yours, which I find fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I was hoping to achieve here is that a lot of decisions, so if you want to make every decision with the whole community, that's not possible. I also don't think it's ideal to have a lot of important decisions being taken by just 5 people. I don't think that is proper decentralization. But if we would say that we would have those decisions being created by people who are actually part of the team, who are engaged, who are being part of the Deep Funding operational structure, if you want, I think those people will in many cases be more willing and available to help with decision making. And I think in that smaller group, I think of this group maybe in the future could be maybe 20 or 50 active people. I think that consent mechanism might work and might work better than if you try to do it with the whole organization. Actually, it works there as well, but with a twitch. So let me continue a little bit further. So if I take an even more high level view, there's also the community. So we would have circles that are in charge of everything they are responsible for. there is this board of people made up of participants of the circle, and some of these participants will be more active and engaged than others, which is fine. They will be discussing all kinds of other stuff that are above that level. And once in a while, there may be something that is really fundamental, and that we say, well, we cannot possibly do that with these 20 or 50 people. We have to ask the whole community. For instance, the blueprint that is being created by SingComDAO. So I would hope also that from this community, there would be people going into these circles, and sometimes also out of these circles going back to the community. So we have levels here. I thought, what should be level 1? Should it be the circles or should it be the community? But then I thought, well, maybe at some point it's even possible, if we grow large enough, that some circles will have some kind of sub-circles. So maybe there will even be a level 4 there. But this is the larger picture. And then there are many questions to be solved, and I'll try to go a little bit quicker through this. So first of all, the question is, what kind of circles do we need right now or in the future? And I can think of a number of them. So we have created recently the focus group, and Gabriel, it does have a purpose, and it already showed its purpose, and I think it's working well. Of course, there's Raphael, me, the internal team. The review and support team also has a very clear purpose. First, eligibility reviews, and going forward, milestone reviews and approvals, but also in a guiding and coaching fashion. And now to come back to your point, Gabriel, I think we need a representation of the awarded teams. But if I'm very honest, I'm not sure from day one what they will be doing. And what kind of things they will be deciding. For the other teams, have a very clear idea. I still think we should go ahead with that, and maybe we'll find the purpose when we are starting it. But it could be that I'm falling in the trap that you just pointed out. I don't know. Let me just continue. Marketing, we actually started that. So there's also a very, very clear operational purpose there. And then, yeah, we could have outreach and support. We have this board of appeal that I talked about. I think there is some very good reason to have some circle being involved in data analysis and advice on all that reputation and voting and calculation around that. Maybe I'll come back to that later as well. The configuration of reputation systems, if we get to that governance stage. So that will be a while, but at some point that might be a circle. Maybe even governance, so that the very topic that I'm discussing right now could also be the topic of some circle, either permanently or temporary. And then we have the supervisory council and the ambassadors, which are not part strictly of Deep Funding, but are somehow connected. So, question that pops up then, should all these circles be part of all decisions? And these questions I don't have answers to yet, but I'm hoping to explore and to find out that as we go along. Should all these members have an equal weight in all decisions? Some here might be seniors that have been working and being in meetings like this for 2 years, while others are brand new. So I don't know, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, something to be decided. And of course, going back to that previous slide, what type of decisions should we typically want to elevate to the level of the whole community? It would be very hard to make a clear, crisp definition of that, because there will always be new things emerging, but we can give some guidelines. One moment. Yeah, another question is, so how fast should we roll this out? Should we start with all circles, or should we do it phased? And which are most urgent to have? And then maybe, Gabriel, we come back to the purpose again. And my fear also is a little bit, it's easy to draw all these circles and how it should work in practice, etc., and how involved people should be and engaged and all the great things we'll do together. But we need to have the community for it as well, matured enough, versatile, diverse enough, and just the right amount of people, the numbers. And then what kind of topics and decisions can we expect to be done in these circles? So we talked about eligibility reviews and milestone things. So there's a clear area there. There can be conflicts between a team and reviewer. Maybe we need to be able to finalize that, or if a project really needs to pivot from what they promised, and there are good reasons for that, maybe we need to have some circle or some people giving their approval, or that larger board. Other topics, and I'll just race through it right now, is which pools will we have in the new round? Will there be a new pool? Do we need to retire a pool? Dates and timelines for things, for rounds, distribution of funds over the different pools. There can be all kinds of new initiatives that we are thinking about constantly, partner projects, or maybe other initiatives that we do that are not dependent on rounds that take place a couple of times a year. We have had RFPs in this round. It would be great to have community RFPs. That's a topic in itself. And then the whole thing around reputation and voting. So the issues that we had this round. And ongoingly, there's always the question, should we downvote or upvote? And should they have equal values, etc., etc. So there's a lot there that can be discussed as well. And yeah, so governance maybe a little bit later. I've made that blue. So reboard structure, creation of new circles, but at some point that should also be a topic, and even beyond that. But so this thing here is there, I can move it away. So how do we start this in a controlled way is what I was asking myself. And so what we are doing now, de facto, and without, it has a little bit of thought behind it, is that we start with a selected group of people. So the focus group is a very good example. I asked people to apply, and we had a form out, but in the end, we just selected a group of people to make sure it's diverse from different areas, different ages, different gender, different background, Cardano, SingularityNET, etc. But also, I think it's quite likely that at some point it will not be, well, first of all, it won't be selected by me, but maybe by the focus group themselves. But maybe it will be an election by the community, because they are supposed to represent the community. So for this specific circle, that could be the right thing to do. Transparent and ready to be open. So even if we start with a smaller subset of people, also the review team, they have been together now for 2 rounds, and they learn to work together, and they learn to speak the same language. They learn to build a culture. So especially if we're moving on to milestone reviews, that culture is really important. When do we say no to a milestone? And when do we just help a team? And when are we strict? That is very hard. So I think it's probably best to build that in a more controlled environment. And then when that culture is there and people are getting to grips with that, we can open it up and get new people in, and then have that rotating, etc. Rotation. Next bullet point. I'll skip that one. Process for selecting new members in a team, in a circle, is to be determined, because it can depend on on different things, like we don't want people hanging around too long. Different circles have different purposes. Some may be elected, some, I don't know. But that's something we need to dive in deeper as we go along. Now we have now 5 circles that we are aiming for. The focus group, mentioned enough about that. The review team, both are done. We have those, and I'm really, really, really happy with that. We couldn't do without them anymore already. Marketing circle is something that is in progress. We're having some discussions about that, and that would help us a lot as well, because there's a lot of hands-on work and a lot of things that can be done but aren't done currently. Awarded team circle is something, I still think we should start, but also a little bit exploratory. And then we have the circle of appeal, which is still something to be discussed. So, wait a minute. So I'm almost there now. We have these 5 circles identified at the top that I think would be good to start out with. And then there are topics. So how do we go about topics and circles? And while I was thinking today, I tried to match that. And I thought, well, pools and rounds, I think that can perfectly be discussed in a wider group, a cross-section of all these teams. New initiatives, like we have a partner that would like to join us in some new pool. Do you think that is appropriate? I think that's perfect to discuss in this wider group, or a whole new process that we want to start. Reputation and voting, that's very dynamic at the moment. There are a lot of teams jumping in and having discussions, including our internal SingularityNET team. So there's a lot going on there as well. But I think at some point, I think important topics around reputation and voting, for instance, do we need some kind of KYC or not? Would be a perfect topic to discuss with the wider selection of people in this group. And I think we could have some kind of consent mechanism there even. But then the last thing, and then I will circle back to what you were just saying, Kenrick. There are some things that you just want to not discuss at length anymore because they have been discussed, and you just need a decision on something. So how do we do that? Eligibility conflicts. There was this person in round 3 that was really harassing everybody in the organization because he felt unfairly treated, which I completely disagree with. But would be great to say, well, we have these group of wise people and they will make the final verdict, and then it's closed. Milestones, there can be issues between the reviewers and the teams at some point. Probably there will be at some point. And very good example, this focus group. We had this process about should we change anything in the awards due to this desired behavior of some bad actors in the group. There was one person who did not consent, and again, I appreciate that feedback, and we can learn from it. So, but at that point, we still need to make that final decision. Okay, we've listened to everybody. Everybody could make the show or not give their consent and explain why. And now we need to go forward. So how do we do that? And Kenrick, I'm coming back to that circle, but in a slightly different way. Because the way I'm thinking about this right now is that it's more like a virtual circle. It's not a real circle, but it's a group of delegates. And I can imagine that each of these other circles at times, or maybe they will rotate that job. So you are our delegate for January or for Q1 or something. So that we always have a smaller group of people that ideally will rotate a little bit. We have to make sure that there's also culture there. So maybe not everybody should rotate at the same time or something. And we can use them not for all kinds of high-level decisions, not about the next pool, not about a partner, not about a new process. We can do that in a larger group. But these very specific things that need a final thing, we can have that virtual group decide upon.
Well, maybe we could call it like a coordinating circle, or something like I'm not sure Board of Appeal is an attractive name because it immediately assumes that its purpose is to resolve conflicts. Whereas,
It is.
Right, but that might be the first thing on your mind, right, that is needed. But the more general thing, like you could turn it around. You could call it the collaborative circle, right? The circle that is just there to make sure that the other circles can work well together collaboratively. And so the point is, instead of making it focused on a negative thing, make it focused on the positive of we want to work collaboratively as a group.
Well, I would argue, Kenrick, that for that collaborative part, we have this. We have this common environment where we all collaborate, and it's not just a few representatives. I see no reason in this digital age why we couldn't have 20 or even 50 people in a group where some of them are more engaged than others, and making sure that these circles stay connected. I don't think we need to have one person from each circle calling the shots there. We do need that for conflicts. So that's why I interrupted you and saying, yeah, it is about resolving. There will be conflicts. We're not in an ideal world. There will be conflicts at times. So we need somebody to resolve those. And it's not the nicest job. Probably nobody fancies doing that. Well, maybe some people will, but so my drift here, the drift that I'm in, is that I would like to, so in the spirit of decentralization, thinking of AI improving in the world and becoming maybe a bit of a threat to some people. And we want to be independent and we want to be resilient to all kinds of things. Then having this group of 5 or 6 people making all these decisions just doesn't feel enough. I think having a group of 20 to 50 people making all those decisions, if 20% of those people would for some reason not be available anymore, or even if 50% of those people would not be available anymore, the organization as such would still be able to continue. And with that group of 5 people, I think we're making ourselves just a little bit too vulnerable, both for politics, people doing power play, and also for accidents that might happen.
But like the point is, like if you have 5 circles, as a starting point, it would be 10 people that would be in this general circle at a minimum. And then from there, you can always have.
So explain me something here, Kenrick. If we have 5 people that are permanent in that circle and then 5 other people that are appointed, what meetings would there be where there would only be 5 people, and what meetings would there be where there would be 10 people?
Okay, so that's a great question. So this is an interesting part of this. The 5 people you're referring to, I'm going to use the word leader. We can change that word if people don't like it, but they're essentially, they derive their authority from this general circle, and they provide the vision for each of the subcircles. So that's the leaders. Then again, the circles elect a delegate to be on the general circle. So the delegates are also part of this general circle. All 10 are full members of the circle. All 10 of them are part of the decision-making process. They all have the same level of peer-to-peer authority. Yeah. And I'll tell you what's unique about it. And like, I'll just give you an example of just a real eye-opener for me in our own team when I started using this, is that right now, Fotrec is just sole proprietorship LLC. It's my own company. I'm looking to expand the equity in it, but right now it's just me with a group of contractors that have been working with us. So with the contractors, I formed a circle, and then that circle selected their own delegate, right? And that individual now serves as an advisor to the company as well as being a contractor for the company.
Yeah.
So this person is Megan Hess, who is more involved with our Catalyst work. But the thing that was an eye-opener to me is that when I think of an advisor to my company, I started by mentors who I know and have worked with for a while that I knew would give me the feedback I need to stay on track. I never imagined that someone I had hired and was working for me would become my advisor. But now,
Okay.
so that's where the decentralization comes in, is that
I understand that concept. I understand that concept, and I think it's great, actually. And I think it would be great if a lot of companies would work like that. But I'm still not convinced that's the best recipe for us right now. And let me ask you one more question. So if in this slide, so we have the milestone and review team. Let's suppose that this big thing at the top is our leaders circle, or whatever we don't want to call it. If we have one person here that is part of that leadership, you say he's really part of the team, he's in all the calls, etc. Now there's one person on the leadership team that is also taking part of the milestone review teams, right? Meetings.
Right.
So the question there is the same. The question there is the same. Will this person be in all the meetings of the milestone review group, or just in part of them?
No, all of them. Those two
so
people
what is the difference?
What is the difference
then I ask, what is the difference between just assigning two people from this circle to the middle? It will be exactly the same, because it will be the
difference is the flow of information and responsibility. So the general circle, which we could even start with just the fact that SingularityNET is kind of our general, or the organization SingularityNET as a starting point is kind of the general circle in a sense. I understand you're wanting to make that kind of give it the status of being just a sub-circle. But I'm guessing that a member of SingularityNET will serve on each one of these circles. Well, maybe that's the first question. When you look at the awarded
we don't have enough people for that. So that's not going to work. But
it might not be different people, but in the milestone, let me ask the question. In the milestone review, the focus group, and the awarded teams, and actually even on the ambassadors, you do have someone that is employed by SingularityNET working in the ambassadors program. So the point is there will be a SingularityNET employee in each one of these circles. Is that right?
No, that's not right. It's just Raphael and me. And unless Raphael will be in 3 circles and I will be in 2 circles.
Right, but like look at the awarded teams, for instance. Either you or Raphael will be attending those meetings to help coordinate that.
Maybe, but maybe not all of them. I made a very specific case to the focus group. If you want me to be in listening sessions, I'm there. If you want me to be in the weeklies, I'm there. But it's also perfectly fine to do that without me.
Yeah. Anyways, just getting
Henrik, one question here. So very simple. If we have meetings in the leadership team and there are 5 people there, and these 5 people are also part of one of these other circles, and they attend all the meetings of that other circle, and you have one person of that lower circle that attends all the meetings of the middle circle and is equal part, then it's exactly the same dynamics than that you just take 2 people of the lower circle and all add them in the middle circle. The only thing that is different is the title you give them. This is leader.
Well,
and
their
this
role is, that's what, I guess that's the point, is that the general circle then, right, is kind of trying to be the coordinator of the overall mission, okay? And they appoint a leader to each one of these sub-missions. So the leader's role is to represent the general circle. And then the delegate has the opposite role. They're supposed to be a representative of the point of view of the milestone to the general circle. So you get the two-way communication. And that the two-way communication, it's an ambassador. You think of it as an ambassador, right? The United States has an ambassador to France, right? And the US citizen goes to France and represents the US in France. And likewise, France has an ambassador to the United States. It's a French citizen who goes to the United States and represents the French point of view. So maybe this is a better word, is it's an ambassador from one circle to the other circle.
Yeah. So if I wrap
That's
it
what
up,
we need to do.
my opinion on this is that it's a step up from hierarchical organizations, a big step up. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I think in this age with our digital support that we can get for processes with more people, there is no need for this, and we can involve all people in all circles. And I would say that's an even bigger step up. That is real democracy. Otherwise, it's still a little bit of representative democracy. So I think it's better to make a lot of decisions with, suppose there are 50 people in a number of circles that we have. I think it's better to have most of the decisions being made by 50 people than by 5 or 10 people that are representing. I don't think there's any, for a lot of, if we do it properly, if we have a proper process and digital support of decision making and discussing, I don't think there isn't any reason why we can't involve just anybody, because maybe anybody in this circle has this splendid idea and insight that will just remain buried if we go for this representative structure. Ubio, I think Kenrick and me have talked enough. Looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Nothing much, Jan. I just want to state my opinion on the subject. Personally, I do feel like this other circle, the circle at the middle, is currently complicating issues. And I feel like, so I'm asking myself, like, so when we get into this kind of issues, the next thing that comes to my mind is always to backtrack and ask myself, how important is this particular issue that it's necessary to give us this level of complication? And personally, I do think we can do with or without it, and I'm going to explain why I think so. So, because the dynamics for and against it are actually very strong, and like I do understand where Kenrick is coming from, and I do also understand your point. So this now makes me to ask myself, like, so why can't we decentralize even the very decisions that are needed by this very core circle back to the individual circles, and only bring the circle at the core only when needed? So now this may not be the best solution, but I'm just walking you through how my mind was working as the conversation was going through. Some probably thinking like, okay, so there is definitely a need for a decision to be made, and then the circles converge from all the different places. It can be everyone if we decide that that's the model we want to use, and then it can be representatives just for that specific issue that we want to analyze or solve, and then they get together, solve the issue, and then go back to their individual circles. till whenever it's needed again. So the only thing we need in this particular way would be a methodology to call for that particular circle to actually converge. And then they converge, they analyze, they make a decision, and then they decentralize. So that way, we don't keep putting so much responsibility and this and all of this. And when, that's just the way it was working in my head,
Yeah, so when I started thinking about this, if we have 5 circles here, I thought maybe we can get to a kind of situation where you say, well, question type A or topic type A will be decided by circle 2, 3, and 5. And topic B will always be decided by circle 2, 3, and 4 because they have some relevance there, and we might still go that way. So, as I mentioned, I would say all decisions as much as possible in the most granular component of the organization. And on the other hand, it's also good if these circles work together, right? That's also culture, and some things will be touching everybody at some point. And it's good to have those kind of discussions. But there's also, and I was quite passionate just now in my conversation with Kenrick. I do see there's also merit in having that inner circle. It makes something, but it feels like it's the comfortable way. You have some trusted people that will make the decisions with you. But I'm not trusting my comfort there. I think maybe it's better to stay away from that comfort and have more people involved. Okay, I'm talking too much. Felix.
I think it's a great concept, though I really think the devil lies in the detail on very much things. On all the nitty-gritty things, actually, like how the projects organize themselves, who communicates what and why. And usually we have to assume that in a case like here, we outline a long-term possibility for people to engage in governance, meaning that we incentivize people already to build up their own interests in governance in this regard, which is a good thing. And the bad thing is that we also incentivize people to build up political positions. As longer or as more people engage and build knowledge, experience, and expertise, as more the political individual interest increase as well over time. And when everything is driven by humans actually in this regard, it's just a matter of time. The system won't be cheated in the first half months, let's say, for example, because individuals first have to build the knowledge to actually understand how to best cheat the system. And maybe not forcefully they want, but simply because we are humans. And each human has the social desire to be recognized by its environment, to create a role in new ecosystems. So what I would actually love to think about is how would Plato's Politica would look like if Plato would have known about AI? For example, in this regard, where do AIs sit? And is it maybe possible in the very beginning already to empathize, to say, oh, okay, we have the circles and groups, but when they communicate with each other, there's always the problem of the silent post, a little bit of this problem, right? The formation of information, as more steps you set between communicating information from one group to the next, to the next, to the next, as more the truth of the information will get loose. Because it's biased all the time, not because we want, because we are simply. Maybe in the beginning already to say, oh, okay, how can we implement actually AI agents in governance systems and making sure that people here actually train AIs properly and building up capacities which are beyond human bias, maybe in this regard, and really leveraging what the whole thing in Singularity from my perspective is about as well, is a really strong focus in the beginning already. To say, building this AI agents for governance topics is a top priority. And people, don't build your own governance roles because your long-term vision is to become totally obsolete. So don't even think about becoming a politician. So no, we want AI, we can doing maybe some of the really important stuff. But I don't want to exclude humans totally, would be wrong as well, but already moving a little bit to this, let's say, synergy between them.
Yeah, so when I started out, with Deep Funding, I envisioned community roles that would just be one community, and people, maybe based on reputation or whatever, would come and do a certain job and just have that big thing. And then I suddenly found myself in making that hierarchy because it's the natural and easiest thing to do. And I suppose what I'm doing now by making it the decision in a bigger group, trying to build in resilience against that political inclination that you mean. So if we have a group of between 20 and 50 people making a lot of decisions at some point, that group will be more resilient with diverse and circles below it and etc. I think it will be more resilient to political power play by certain individuals than if we have that center thing and give that more and more power. So that was a bit of the thinking behind it.
But the funny thing is, emerging goals is not a term which is totally new, invented for AI. Emergent goals is something what is observed usually in human behavior, right? And this really applies 100% so strongly to governance. Like, I'm skeptic. I love what you do, but I'm kind of skeptic. Sorry, I shut up. Guglielmo, please go for it.
Hey, Nietzsche, Plato, I'm telling you, it's a never-ending, never getting boring in this SingularityNET discussions. I love it. Starting, congratulations, Jan, Raphael, amazing job, and seeing this evolution in the thinking process and trying to have a better results for next rounds and our dynamic as a community is really interesting. I'm learning a lot. We all find and agree, I guess, that the hardest part is decision making. We end up discussing politics and trying to be polite and trying not to offend, trying to respect all the parties' arguments, listen. We try to articulate the better words to respond if we have a conflict. But as basically we are analyzing our efforts towards objectives, I see this this organization of circles very, very, very on point, Jan. It's we will organize ourselves as small organisms into one organization. It's called, Carol, we have tried to find a different word that is not that institutional, but it's the best way to describe it. We are an organization if we are organized. If not, we are inner cycles within inner cycles. So having this strategy designed to have and find mechanisms of consent is marvelous. I love what I see. And I have to agree with you, Jan, again. Probably, I hope you sleep better tonight, because at the end, if we have a conflict, we need a solution, we need a decision making, and we need to move forward. And that's the only way to have an evolving system. And sometimes we get afraid of that, but I think it's the better way to do it, because staying still is not a solution, and being open for this human nature of screwing things up because of this ego, ambitions, trying to all the things that Felix was mentioning. It's the best way to do it. And having a flow and human resources that can interact, come in or come out where the system we decide to apply, it's the way to do it. And you need a conflict, you need a solution. and that's the best way to have a system moving forward to an evolve and resolve. So yeah, I love what I see.
Thank you, Guillermo. Yeah, the thought that struck me when you were talking, and also last comment of Felix, and I think that's also at the core of my discussion with Kenrick, is it's all relatively easy to make this look really great on a slide. But in real life, with real people, with real issues, etc., things will go different than whatever process you think of. So I think the task is to build a process that is resilient enough to withstand practice, or that is flexible enough to be adaptive and to be adaptive. We are still very much in experimental situation still. And also I would like to point out that having such a structure and building it with people that you know and that you work with face to face, and that you can talk to and go to the coffee machine together, etc., or even be on Zoom one-on-ones, is different than having a larger community of people in different areas of the world with very different cultural backgrounds, different time that they are online and working, and then try to build something that works. And yeah, I'm not sure if that favors one solution over the other, but it's something that we need to think of. All right, Tommy, when everybody here was talking about Greek philosophers, I somehow had to think about you, but I'm not sure if it's just your looks or the content as well.
Well, I'm going to leave Greece and go to more of a Sanskrit culture. I want to commend you on your open mind and your experimentation in this governance issue. Governance, the mandala governance system is ancient, and it doesn't have a modern holacracy word for it. And essentially in the images that you presented in this new system is a marriage. And I think right now the brains in this room, and I'm not one of them, though I had Latin in Catholic school, we need to come up with a new word right now for this system of mandala that you've married with the tribal elder system, sitting around the fireplace. The circle above the rectangle above the circles. The circles are mandala governance, and the rectangle is essentially an elder council sitting around the fireplace listening to the other circles. There needs to be a modern term for it so people adopt it. Holacracy of something, elder holacracy or whatever it is. But it's a very interesting throwback fusion of ancient governance systems. And I think it's one of the more simplistic governance systems that you could experiment with. Everybody has been to a campfire. We've all made s'mores, and we've all talked our problems. The Sanskrit mandala governance system is thousands of years old. Marrying them is brilliant, Jan, just absolutely brilliant. And it's going to cut down, I think, on a lot of the political bullshit.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that, Tommy. Thank you. Gabriel.
Thanks, Jan. Jan, I think thinking of things through a lens of product management might be helpful. I think I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in with the similar theme as what we're going through here today. Trying to shoehorn circle structures and decentralized governance. Sometimes it's worth just bringing it back to basics. And from a product perspective, if we think of each circle as a product, or a product team at least, but I think of it as a product, each circle has a definition of done or acceptance criteria. People, the reason for communication between circles is based on dependencies. So if you tie things back to product language, my view is that it can help a lot. So if you have dependencies, you have a definition of done that you're looking to achieve with a small group of people, your circle, and you need to communicate because there are dependencies. So you go and have a conversation. You don't need delegates and leaders and circle structures and whatnot before you just got to the grassroots of what you're actually trying to do, which is have a conversation and make an agreement based on the dependencies towards achieving your definition of done, or your acceptance criteria. Again, my view is to start by defining what the acceptance criteria is before having to think about the relationships between people. The one thing definitely that I think Sociocracy again gets very right is that the role is not the soul, and the new DAO groups make the mistake of associating the ego soul with the function or the role that they think they want to do. Again, hopefully some of that resonates.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. So, yeah, I think things like acceptance criteria and definition of done fit maybe a little bit more naturally to some circles than others. So, for instance, a review circle is very functional, and we can define that quite clearly and specifically. For something like the focus group that is more mediating between the community and inner people of Deep Funding, that's already a little bit more ambiguous. Actually, you don't want to restrict that because they should be able to mediate on anything. And of course, you can define that also, that mediation as an acceptance criteria or a definition of done. It's possible, but yeah, it's a very different way for different circles, I would say. Wrapping this all up, Gabriel, you still have your hand up. Is that on purpose or? Okay. You know, this is a vision right now, but like I was saying, it's the doing that counts. So I love making all kinds of processes and diagrams, etc., and I usually hate to follow them myself. So we should not fall into the trap, I think, to overthink it at this moment. When you're talking about product, Gabriel, the term that I've used for our process, our strategy, if you want, is that of design thinking. And that is how we want to move forward. So in a design thinking role, we started with with a group of awarded teams that did peer reviews, with a group of community members that did eligibility review, and we moved that to the next step. And now we see that we need something different or bigger or whatever. So we're moving step by step. I think the next step I think the teams that we have outlined here make sense. How the communication will be and what kind of decisions, and I think we can leave that a little bit open at this stage. So we can start with these 5 circles, we can call them. We can make sure that they are aligned with Raphael and me. So maybe, yeah, for sure we will be in a lot of meetings. But we also mentioned that there should be ideally 2 people that we could contact and ask things to do, etc. And then we'll let it evolve a little bit, and we'll see how these circles react to each other. We'll probably have some kind of group on Mattermost or somewhere else where all circles are in, and we'll find out what kind of topics will emerge. The only thing that I'm not clear about right now, how we should make the next step, is who should be involved in making these decisions, especially when there is some kind of conflict of interest, of conflict of opinion, and somebody needs to draw the line. But even that, we don't have to decide on that tonight. This is still very open and continuing conversation. And I think if we are able to make this next step and have a group of team members that are represented, and we have a marketing pool, and we have the eligibility pool doing great work, and the focus group doing great work, then we have already achieved our next step in this design thinking process. And I'm sure along the way, we'll learn a lot of other things that will help us to think of the next step. Felix.
Just the last remark was one on design thinking. I think a really key part of it would be education as well. I think because any circle, any group will just be able to have that much quality of their performance as they are educated on the topics. And also taking into account that there's a massive mismatch already, or not a mismatch, but a massive difference between the knowledge, for example, within, let's say, for example, SingularityNET internal circle and all other circles. All other circles together will only have a fraction of the knowledge about the Deep Funding and SingularityNET as the only SingularityNET internal circle has. By default, this creates the situation that already, however circles you add and power structures you will provide, the SingularityNET internal stuff circle has to dominate the others, not because they want, but simply by the knowledge they have. And really making sure that there's an educational process in the design thinking, which makes sure that people, once they leave a circle, for example, imagine, for example, you would leave SingularityNET Foundation tomorrow. All the knowledge which you have accumulated in yourself as an individual would literally be lost. And just replacing a Jan, for example, or a Raphael or Peter doesn't just go in a week. This takes months and years to get to this point. So really making sure that once you have also this fluid system to say people come in, people go out. When they go out, how do we make sure not all the experience, knowledge, and expertise which they have built is also leaving now, leading to a by default degradation actually then of knowledge over time, simply because it has to each time rebuild without having access to the ancient knowledge then actually.
So talking about AI, and I'm quite serious here, what we should do is to create, maybe not for each person, but for each circle, a kind of digital twin. That we will feed with all the interactions and communications and decisions that are being made in that circle. So there's always that store of information and experience that stays there. I think it would be great, actually. Another thing, yes, I do have probably, well, I try to share as much as information that I have, but of course for me it's a large part of my day that I work on these things, and for a lot of you it's just a couple of hours a week, I imagine, although some of you quite a bit more. But there is things are already shifting. If we, for instance, are doing if the review team will start doing the milestone reviews, they will have much more intimate knowledge of the projects and the teams and things that are being going on than I have. In the first round, I knew all projects by heart. In the second round, I knew most of them. In this round, to be honest, I didn't have the time to go through all these proposals. And so I don't know all of them. And so my information and my being, for me, at some point, it will also not be able, I will also not be able to be on top of all information anymore. So that's another reason for decentralizing it and for scaling this organization outwards and not inwards. So I think it's a transition that has already started, to be honest. And indeed, the goal is that if after 2 years I will go on a sabbatical or whatever, that maybe they will miss my nice conversations and my long monologues like this one, but everything should just go as usual. I see Tommy laughing there. All right, Fly.
Yo guys, yeah, it's interesting conundrum that we're tackling, or perhaps a few mixed together, and I guess it is hard to ensure this accountability when there isn't someone permanent or especially taking responsibility. But those permanent roles, if there need to be permanent roles or people in circles or in that cloud, it doesn't have to be, well, or often we naturally associate it with being a leader or a decision maker, but it can be like the administrator is the permanent person, or the kind of janitor. And I think there are the circles, but there are also satellites and like experts, which I think we can often underestimate how useful, like actually what network we do have, and kind of skills or wisdom that we can kind of call upon. And I guess, yeah, I imagine that's what you could be eventually, Jan, just like a kind of satellite where if things are needed, if wisdom is needed to be called upon, then we go to the mountain and you are the oracle.
Oh, you make it sound really attractive, Fly. I can go on my sabbatical with my little camper, and then once every 2 months you'll go up the mountain and ask for my wisdom, my specific perspective. Well, I don't know how it will evolve. I think, again, it would be easier to have that middle round. I think it would be easier on short term, because you have a small group of people that you get to know, even if there's some rotation. And but I think somehow it's less resilient if we can make, and that's really new, and I think it's only possible now due to all the digital advances, if we can have a more really distributed way of decision making. And I was saying that of these circles, that everyone in the circle could be part of that decision making process. But I can also imagine that it's not like Kenrick says, one go one way and one the other way, as in holacracy. But I can imagine that if you have a circle of 10 people, that 5 of them say, okay, I want to be part of that higher level decision making, and 5 others say, no, don't bother me with that stuff. I'm very comfortable just doing this small part. I don't want to have all those big decisions, which is great. And maybe one circle will delegate 4 people will 4 people will organically be part of the higher level discussions because they're interested, and maybe per circle that will differ. In some circles maybe 100%, in other circles maybe 30% that will participate in those larger discussions. But yeah, I think it's very challenging to do it that way. But yeah, it's a step-by-step process. So who was saying that yeah, I still have a lot of knowledge, and to be honest, I also have a lot of, if you want to call it that, decision power, and that is a process. It's not like what I put here on the slides. We can just do that tomorrow. It's a process where we go towards step by step. So I imagine having these circles that, first of all, we have a lot of discussions, and then maybe after a while, after half a year or a year, I don't know, we'll have a proper format for making decisions, and it's that decision. And even if I don't like it and Raphael don't like it, if that committee says, well, this is a decision, well, that's what we will do. Actually, we already have been in those kind of situations before, but then more informally. So it's a step-by-step process. But it would be great to get in a situation where, yeah, we have this common decision making, and then actually more important, discussion. and exchange of ideas and insights, and not polemics, but really exchange. I think in the end, that is probably the most important thing. I feel a little bit like a preacher now, almost that guy up on the mountain. All right.
Discover your future.
Right.
It's a nice future.
I'm really grateful that I could share all of this with you. And I'm actually also very grateful that I can do this in a safe environment where I don't have to be afraid that my head will be chopped off because I say something stupid once in a while. And that I know that this slide deck is already different than the one last week. So maybe 3 weeks from now, we have more insights by discussing together and with my colleagues and with other people, that it might change a little bit again. And I think that's a great thing to have, to be able to exchange ideas this way and together build something like this. So thank you. Thank you all for being here, not just in this meeting, but being in this community. I really deeply appreciate it. Also, all you people that are watching this and weren't here present, you count just as well. Next time you'll be here again. So anybody, any other last wise words?
Thanks, Jan. This was great. Fantastic discussion.
Yeah, thanks for your discussion, Kenrick. Keep it coming, and we'll just continue sharing insights and learn from each other. And maybe now and then a little bit passionate.
Thanks, Jan.
And I think it was really worth hijacking the town hall for governance discussion. It's definitely something relevant we can keep as well. When we see, oh, okay, there is no active funding around right now. Maybe really open this environment on governance and getting people engaged and involved there. Because in this course, I think the most beautiful thing what happens is building up collective knowledge and understanding already on the terms. And for the long term, this is really, really important. So
maybe if you allow me, thank you, Felix, then I would like to share 2 more slides or so for next week, because when you were saying, I'm glad that we did this in this town hall, I think the conversations next week will be equally interesting, but on a different topic, which is also very important, which will also be a long-term thing that we will think about and we will change over time. So, so that's reputation and contribution ratings. It's the same text as I showed in the beginning. So this is a sketch I made and shared here and there. So what this means is that you have a reputation rating, which is created here in the middle, which consists of many different and sometimes very different attributes. Yeah, so it could be related to your token balance, maybe KYC. That's a discussion we need to have, or some kind of KYC. Wallet history and behavior, voting, trading versus holding, suspicious behavior just before or after voting. What we are doing right now on the platform to calculate contribution scores, and it's just early days, we can make that very much more sophisticated. And what we are doing right now, what we're starting, which is new, is like a completely manual award system or team that creates some manual awards for who is the best contributor. And what I learned from last round is that, or I knew that, but it surfaced again, is that the more of these metrics you have, the more complex the system might become. But it also becomes more resilient against gaming. It's maybe tricky to game one thing, but to game all of them is really, really hard. And so this is something I wrote somewhere on Mattermost. So if you have one token, one vote, of course that's best for whales. We don't always want it to the extreme. Quadratic voting will incentivize wallet splitting, so we need to make countermeasures for that. One person, one vote is also an option, but then people can recruit their friends and families and maybe people on the other end of the globe that just want to earn a buck. So none of these things in themselves are flawless. Everything can be gamed. But if we have a combination of all these things that is balanced between these extremes, then I think we can get to a balanced system that will be very hard to game, but also will be more reliable, unbiased, and truthful. But obviously, if you have a system like this, then you have to think about how much percentage do we assign to your tokens and to your behavior and to human assessments and to other things, presence in meetings like this one. That's a hard job and something that will need to be tweaked and configured ongoingly. So therefore, I think at some point we, maybe not first thing, but not too long, we will probably need a circle just for this as well, who will think about this and advise that and do some in-depth analysis like Robert Haas is now doing for us, for instance. But it would be great to have a number of people, and then they could advise, for instance, that structure that we created before and say, well, we think that this KYC is not that important anymore because our reputation system is very well matured these days. And then we can change the dials a little bit there. So this is a discussion for next week. It's very close to my heart. I love this stuff, but I'm in transit, so very likely I will not be able to make it. But yeah, just join with the focus group, and they will lead the discussions on these topics. So that's the last thing I wanted to share with you, just as a appetizer for next week. Lots of interesting stuff going on in this community. Thank you.
Great stuff.
See
Thank you.
if not next week, then hopefully soon after.
Enjoy your trip. Get better before you go.
Yeah, I hope so. Otherwise,
And
all the
thanks.
people on the plane will be sorry for being there with me.
And thanks for a lively meeting.
Thank you too. Thanks everybody being here. Whether you are interacting or not, appreciate you being here. All right. That's all, folks. See you next time.